Hello everyone, welcome to Against the Grain. Today I am talking with founder of familyyouthfoundation.com.au, Jerkuei Anyuon, also known as Jerry. Welcome. So Jerry, I met you at the Australia Day protest recently. I've seen you at a number of protests last year. So Jerry, what are your thoughts on the cancellation of Australia Day parade, and the reason being that it was for health advice? However, the Invasion Day parade was allowed to continue with thousands and thousands of people.
Thank you very much for having me. Two things were clear on that day. It was clear that it wasn't because of health concern.
Sure.
Because I walked past Swanston Street, and the number of people that came in there for the Invasion Day were more than they would have turned up if it was a government-organized Australia Day parade. So looking at the two, it dismissed an argument from Daniel Andrews that it was because of health purpose. The government is bringing in sports guys to come and play. So everything that's going on in this week toward Australia Day actually dismissed the argument from the government that it was because of health purpose. It was political. Daniel Andrews just chose a side. So he chose a side by using health as the reasons. So I don't buy the idea that it was because of health. Number two, I went to Australia Day parade. Like I said, Australia Days mean different things to different people. To very people that came here as convict in 1788, if I'm correct, it wasn't an easy day for them. They were taken out of their own country against their will, dumped in a territory that is not theirs. So you would just imagine if somebody like me coming to Australia in 2015 and being dumped by my sponsor, and it was that hard for me in 2015, how would it have been for the person that is brought in 1788? So to just try to cancel the day without understanding where these people, what they went through, and how they managed to despite the weaknesses that has happened, despite the mistake that happened, which were bound to happen anyway, you can't bring two people together that has never known each other, that never known that the other side exists. There will be conflict. So there were conflict, there were atrocities, there were a lot of mistakes that happened in the beginning of this country. But the way the Australian people, both the Aboriginals, the indigenous people, and the convict that came here, came together and solved their problem and produced a great country, need to be celebrated. That's why I went there. So I'm celebrating their acceptance of their mistakes, their hard work to turn what used to be a deadly conflict into a great country and give other people like me a hand to come up here.
What was it that inspired you to start attending the protests last year during the lockdowns in the first place?
Yeah, first of all, I work in the construction industry, and most of my associates are mostly left-leaning. Despite me being a left-leaning person when I was in the university, I was more on the left. So when I was working, I never had time to be engaged in political issues. I never had time to be able to look at things that are going wrong within the community, within the workforce. So lockdown, I was writing some motivational statement on Facebook, and most of my workmates in the construction industry who have been locked down at home, they were actually following me on Facebook, and I didn't know. So one day I decided to put my Facebook off. So I got one of them calling me and he said, "Jerry, you have to put that Facebook back, because saying you start putting some motivational comments on from Jordan Peterson, from Alan Watt, from Miles Monroe, from so many." So when I was trying to put those on, people were trying to get some meaning. They come to my wall to get some meaning. These are some of my workmates. So one of them called me and he said, he was drunk, I think. He was a bit drunk because from the way he was talking. He said he dropped out in year 9, And when he grew up in a broken family, he dropped out of school at year 9 because he had no parent. His parents were drug addicts. They abandoned him. But when he got a concreter at the age of 15, they brought him over and worked as a concreter. He said that work gave him meaning, gave his life meaning. He said he cannot abuse drug now because he knows if you go to work with the drugs in his system, he will lose his job. If you go to work drunk, he will lose his job. So his job gave his life meaning. And he asked me, now that I've been locked down and I have no work, what do you expect me to do? I will revert back to drinking. So there are a couple of them, I will not mention their name, but a couple of them that has gone pretty much into a level of mental health problem that cannot be reversed. And now looking at Daniel Andrews, talking about coronavirus that came out from the hotel quarantine, which was a mismanagement from the government, and he's not mentioning the message that I'm hearing from my mate. That's I said, now I need to join this. And all the work they have done for the rest of their life is now going to zero because they're going back to where they started. So that's why I started looking for people that were protesting against Daniel Andrews. Now, this is the kind of leadership I love in Africa. I'm not going to take it. There's a lot of mental health problem that resulted from the lockdown. We may not know most of them, but people are not going to speak up all. But there's a huge number in the construction industry, especially when you cut down to 25%. In the construction industry, which is the Daniel Andrews stronghold, they don't talk about the mental health there. The union that used to do a lot of good work on mental health couldn't do it because we were locked down. They always, when you used to work, we have somebody from Incoling who come and talk to people. But now during the lockdown, there's nobody talking to you. You have no access to somebody like you, to somebody like me. So what do? You start taking drugs. So we may not know the impact of it, but it will be in the long run. The family members will tell us. Yeah.
Now, I did see you there on Cup Day in Melbourne. So on Cup Day in Melbourne, we had about 400 people arrested, grandmothers, grandchildren, mums and dads, protesting against government lockdown. So did you ever expect to see that coming from South Sudan? And I'd like to know more about your journey from South Sudan. But did you ever expect to see something like that in Melbourne, Australia?
One thing that was clear is that in all this lockdown, police were the first people to arrest the protesters. Like the one we did at the Shrine of Remembrance. We moved and then we were trying to speak. The police came in, hold their hand and lock everybody in.
Kettling.
Yeah, kettling. That's the kettling. I was right there. You talk to them, they don't respond to you. Police were actually the one on the aggressive side. On the one in Parliament, we're just standing outside, and the witness is this member of Parliament from a Liberal Democrat. It's called David Limbrick.
David Limbrick?
Yeah, Limbrick was there. I was just next to him. They did the same thing. So the police were on record not even implementing the chief health officer. How can you cattle people in a hot sun in one place without water, forcing them to be, if I was maintaining 1.5 with you, the police forces me and you to be within less than 1 meter. So the police was on the forefront of aggressing people. I may not, it may be an exaggeration to say the police in Victoria is like the police in Africa. It may not be the same. But at the standard of a civilized country, first world country like Australia, that behavior of the police was not acceptable. It wasn't acceptable. It was the police that was like clearly in the directive of politicians.
Partisan.
Even against the directive of chief health officer. And again, look, what happened to the mother with the woman in Ballarat? Do you need, just even if I was a policeman and I know she's not forcing any threat, I wouldn't handcuff her in front of a kid. I would come and talk to her, warn her, but I wouldn't put those things on her hand. That being a clear mistake, the political leadership in Victoria refused even to say, we are sorry. I would have said sorry for that.
What was life like in South Sudan and what brought you to Australia?
I will start with the South Sudanese. How did South Sudanese come to Australia in the beginning? And I mentioned a bit of it in the Australia Day Parade. The conflict that was in Sudan the former Sudan, which is now both Sudan and then South Sudan. It started years back before the British left. But I will start from the last conflict, which is 1983 until 2005. That conflict displaced a lot of South Sudanese. It was between the Islamic North and the Christian South. Most of them were displaced to Ethiopia, Egypt, Uganda, and Kenya. John Howard partnered with Bush together. They brought South Sudanese here. That is the biggest time when a lot of South Sudanese came to Australia. So the South Sudanese as a whole came here because of the conflict in South Sudan that Australia has no hand in it. And most of them, like some of my relatives, came in here. At a personal level, I never wanted to come to Australia. I thought that I wanted to participate in the politics of my country. I wanted to be one of the change makers in my country. And I was actually politically involved until 2014 when I finally left the politics. So I never wanted to come to Australia. But circumstances always change. And I think Carl Jung, through Jordan Peterson, we call it synchronicity. There are synchronistic events that happen that you may not be able to know why you're being moved. The forces that move you are beyond your control. So my university sweetheart moved here to Australia before me, and she went back when I got married. We had 2 sons. And then she came here, and then I had to move because she got 2 kids, and I have to move and help her. So I moved because of that reason. That's why I came. And then as soon as I arrived, of course, disagreement happened. I don't need to say I'm right or to say she's wrong, but she's a beautiful woman, hardworking. We disagree, and she told me to leave. By the time she told me to leave, I had no status. I have no work status. I have no visa. I have nothing. So I left. That was like an underworld for me. I'd gone from somebody who was doing politics in South Sudan, hoping to be raising my family. Now I've lost everything. So I was like, what am I going to do? I cannot see. I was in less than 2 kilometers away from her, and she doesn't want me to see the kid. And so many things were going on around that 2016. So I said, okay, the best way I need to do it, I need to dig myself out of this hole. So when I got Australia, gave me permanent residence against her will, because she doesn't want me to have it. She wants me to be out of the country. But Australia recognized that I need to be given that chance to be a resident, work, and maybe contribute to my children. So I was given a permanent resident on the 1st of March 2016. And the first thing I did was I went straight away did a security license. I'd work as a security guard. Until finally she refused to allow me to see the kids. And a lot of disagreement happened. I left Brisbane, where I was. I moved to Victoria. So, making the whole story short, I was working at the Metro Tunnel, 2017, and I was seeing a lot of South Sudanese teenage media reporting on them, and I was like, oh, what is this? And the narrative I was getting from the politician and the community leaders within the South Sudanese community, every time the media report or somebody says something about our own weaknesses, they rush straight away to blame or call the person pointing it out racist.
To call the Australians
The community leaders, like for example, when Peter Dutton and Malcolm Turnbull talk about the African kids causing problems, calling them gangs, it was a bit inappropriate the way they were exaggerating it, but the way community reacted, to me, missed the point. I expect the community to explain that we have got challenges, not to call others racist, because I know we've got challenges, and the challenges we had was the very parents that came in here, they were not educated. They've not lived in a big cities like this before. They have kids that are growing up. They don't know how to help them with homework. So it was first a challenge to the parent. Then that challenge came to the kids. And these kids have no role models in the community. And they see the other part of the world, which is the white world, not them as much. And the government in Victoria, and the whole story was not helping enough to integrate these people. They're claiming multiculturalism, but they're not helping them. So I said, this is what we should be saying. We should be saying, guys, the reason our kids are like that, we've got challenges, they need help. So I couldn't get the media. I went to Sky News. They couldn't allow me in. So what I did, I said, okay, I'm going to work on myself, and I will try to create something. Even if I help 3 or 4 people, I'll be doing them under that. And that's when I came in contact with the writing of Jordan Peterson on responsibility. And on right, and people talk about right order, but I said, that was the right time. That's what I was thinking. I said, for me to be effective in Australia, I need to develop a story. And that story must be acted out. So I need to tell a teenager that want to work that, look, I started as a security guard. I came to traffic control. I did this. Practical step that if they do, they will be able to reach where they want to go. I'm not interested in getting government funding. I'm interested in government understanding, first of all, what needs to be done, what is the challenge. If the government doesn't want to understand and just want to throw the money to their supporters, then I'm not a supporter of money. I'm not a left or right. I'm somebody who is striving to do the right thing.
So Family and Youth Foundation.com.au.
Yeah, that's the website, but it's called African Australian Families and Youth Foundation Incorporated. We have 3 areas. We have mentoring program, where the year 9, year 10, at the age where they're likely to join the crime, because if they have no good role model, this group need to be engaged on a sport program, be engaged on mentoring, and then we'll also be doing tutoring with them. I've got a good number of community leaders that are actually committed to this. We just want to start. We need funding, some support to start. That's one area. So that when we engage with them, they won't have time to go and engage in crime. They will be busy in the sport. They will actually feel the sense that we are friends with them. By the time they finish year 12, we would have mentored them. Those who want to go to uni, where we give them a career advice. Those who want to go to apprentice like construction industry, where I am, I can show them what they need to do. And I will actually, I've actually already have a link with subcontractors. So if I find a young man or a young woman who is willing to work in construction, well-mannered, good attitude, I will be able to get him where to work or her. Because what matters more importantly is the attitude, not even the skill. If you have a wrong attitude, you can't work anywhere. Another area of our work which will depend on them, are the young people that have already gone through wrong ways. Like they've got police record, they've maybe committed crime. Most of them relapse back to crime activities because there's nobody helping them to turn around. There's a huge number of them willing to turn their life around, but when they come out from prison, they have no work, they have no community leaders talking to them, to mentor them. The government is not even willing to care for them. Definitely they will be forced to go back into crime. So this kind of group is another group I'm interested in. If they want to change their life, we will help them, walk them through their stages until they change.
Who's getting them into this crime, and what's the benefit for them? And it just seems to go on and on.
Yeah, that's a good question, but definitely there are indications that most of the young people that go to somebody's house, order you to get the car keys and maybe drive away with the car, they're not doing this for them. They don't want the car to go and drive the car. It looks like somebody somewhere is using them by giving them, for example, let's say $1,000, and they tell him, if you go and get me a Ferrari or a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW, this model, I'll give you this. If the police catch him, he has no any other job except continuously doing that. What I was expecting from the government was to investigate, pass a law, maybe create a law, if it is not there already, that find out who are using these teenagers. Because the teenagers that has no good mentoring, has no good parenting parent that have helped them in life, will definitely fall for this group. But if we don't find out who are they, our teenagers all will get destroyed. So that is the biggest problem within the community. And what pisses me off more is we are focusing on the crime, especially the radical left The radical left has gone far now. The radical left, whenever you point me out on what I've done wrong, you will be termed racist. When in the real sense, I'm supposed to do 1, 2, 3, 4 to fit in that economy. Let's say a simple example. The South Sudanese with Daniel Andrews' government. Daniel Andrews' government is the best government for multicultural community ever, according to what they say. They say they are for multiculturalism, they are for minority. But if I asked him, all this big major construction, I'm the only South Sudanese who have been on all these level crossing. And I've came 5 years ago. What's the problem? If that's their government, if this government is supposed to help the minorities, why is he helping them through government handout, but not encourage them to get employment? The reason they're not getting employment is Daniel Andrew cannot force the subcontractors to hire somebody that has no skill, that has no good attitude. That's why we come in with the argument and said, okay, the problem of South Sudanese or other African migrants in general is not racism. It's a lack of responsibility in the community. What do I mean by responsibility? Responsibility is that, okay, now you got a government that you think is your government, created a lot of jobs. It is my responsibility to mentor young people on how they should get the right skill to benefit from those government programs. They should be doing that. The government should be doing that. That guys, the skill that you need is here. I have created the job. I've created enough construction work. But they cannot be hired. Do you know why? They cannot be hired because the employers have been scared by the media. Simple example is wherever I go on my job site, I had to create a job to make sure that people feel comfortable. Because whenever a black person walk in, the assumption in a white man's mind, all of them, everybody, they will say, this person can easily get offended. This person is a victim. This person can collapse and claim racism. But when I crossed that boundaries, that I could see it in their faces, and then I made a joke before. Excuse my language. I said, I was talking with one of my men and I told him, I'm going home, but I will be paid 8 hours. And he said, Jerry, you cannot. You will be paid the hours that you have been here. I said, man, I'm the only smiling black on this job site. And I smiled to everybody. And they all laughed. I wanted to break that barrier. Because in their mind is that if you hire a black person, the media expose them that if you claim, like if I collapse here now and call the police that you have been racist at me, you will be taken to be guilty without even investigating what happened. And that is disadvantaging mostly African. They think that claiming racism is helping them, is disadvantaging them because the employment in this country is not like in Africa and other countries where it's mostly government employment. The employment is private sector. And the private sector has got their own criteria.
So Jerry, when I lived in another country, I moved to Vietnam, a communist country, and the principal of the school educated all the Australian teachers not to walk around assuming that every time something happens, that something bad happens to you, that it's racism, and that it's more just that you don't understand the ins and outs of the Vietnamese culture. And so one example, I would go running around, and I would sometimes I went on a new path to run outside these government buildings that was just on my route, and there was guards there with guns standing outside these government buildings, and everyone kept telling me to cross to the other side of the street. So I assumed it was just because of me, because I'm a foreigner. However, afterwards I discovered that no one is allowed on the footpaths outside these government buildings, including Vietnamese people. So there's a lot of, I just think that a lot of people could misunderstand Australian, Australian characteristics as, someone gets angry at you for a reason that people do think that it's because, they assume that it's because of racism.
Actually, what I would want to say is that if you move as a minority to a new culture, it is incumbent on you as a minority to try hard to step up to integrate. Reason is, you're totally from a different culture. And for you to survive in that new culture you are in as a minority, there are two things you need to change. You either change the culture that you found there, which is impossible, unless you are an imperialist.
Or a communist.
And you don't do it, you're a communist. Or you change yourself. For your own survival. You need to survive. You need to first of all know how to say, how are you? You need to find out what are the polite way to use. Because if you're not polite, you can't go anywhere. So with me, I always use my smile. They call me Smiling Jerry. Everywhere on the job site, I smile. And this is something that is natural with me. I always smile for things that I envision ahead of me that are going well. And people coming, they say, Jerry, thank you, man. So to come to a new culture, it is incumbent on you as a minority to change. And I could remember when I was young, back in Rumbek, my hometown in South Sudan. There's one, the white people are called Kawaja. In Arabic, in ours, they will call it Kawaja.
What does that mean?
That's the name they're given to, it's an Arabic name for a white person, an Arabic name, so they call them Kawaja. Kawajas mean one white man, Kawajat mean more white people. So there's one Italian, one from a Catholic priest, his name is, they used to call him Monsignoro. But he speaks Dinka, the language that I speak. Everybody could come close to him, they could embrace him, he could go everywhere. He even sing the gospel song in Dinka, my language. He was more respected, more praised than anybody else. Look, it's by learning the language. And by when he was doing his missionary thing, he was acting them out in the language of the people. So it is you who should be pushing so hard to integrate in that society you have come in. For one reason, to survive. Number two, to even benefit from the economic benefit that you get in that country. You cannot get them without integrating. For example, let's say you have come here at the age of 40. There are jobs that you cannot do. You cannot never get. You are free. You are in a free country. But your freedom is limited by your age, limited by your skill, limited by your network. Now, if you get somebody telling you here, all these limitations, all these challenges of navigation are not true, it is because somebody is racist. Out of frustration for not moving around, you'll believe it. So there are challenges facing new people in new culture, but without a whiteboard or a blackboard being pointed that these are the reasons, they would be able to work themselves out. But now you come here, you're told you're not getting a job because so-and-so is racist, then come here, stay on Centrelink. Centrelink is giving you something to sustain you, is not making you responsible. And the people benefiting from this are the people using you as a political tool, not you as a community. They're benefiting because that's an agenda that they need to.
And what do they benefit? What?
The community is benefiting nothing but the radical left wing, which focuses more on people who don't think, people who are dependent on the government. Once you create a society, a large number of people that believe that it is a right to be dependent on the government, it will be difficult to change their mind because of the challenges of navigation, because you will not be able to give them a job. So the government will keep you down so that you can depend on them. And if you depend on them, you are like I read an article last week, they were saying that the Western suburb is a well-secure labor bloc. And that person argued that the reason they are there is because most of them are migrants that depend on the government, large families with so many kids, and the narrative that has been used by the media and the left is that those who call this community out on their shortcomings are racist, so they are actually locked-in voters for the labor.
So it could be as simple as strategies to get votes.
Yep, it's a strategy to get votes, and actually they don't care.
Who doesn't care?
The political left. They don't care about these people. If I care about you, to be honest, I would be able to advise you on how to work yourself out of the government dependency.
Take responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. That's personal responsibility. But if I keep you there, and I call somebody calling you out on that, racist, that means I don't even care about you. What happened in America between the Obama and the Trump administration was Trump never did anything that is extravagant enough to the black people. He just say, okay, cut down on the whatever equivalent to Centrelink here. If you cut the welfare from the able-bodied people, I mean there are genuine people that need welfare, but the able-bodied one make it hard for them to get to the welfare. They will look for a job, especially in Victoria now. If I get a phone call now from my boss and they said, you have lost your job, you're not coming tomorrow, I've got another job ready for me. I'll ring somebody. I said, man, can I come and clean the street tomorrow night? Something that will keep me going.
When I was touring Jacinta Price, that was something that we brought up time and time again, was the issue of welfare. When welfare was introduced, it was called sit-down money, because the Aboriginal people were saying, well, you'll give us money just to sit down? Like it didn't make sense, but it took away their agents.
Jacinta is one of the voices in the Aboriginal community that I respect a lot. I haven't met her yet, but I like her argument. It's just like what I've been told. Like last time I was writing something on Twitter by saying Australia is great, and then somebody came in and said, great against what? What are they? What is the cost that has been paid? But I said, if the cost is being paid to create a great country like this, then we need to celebrate that cost. Yeah? And then I said, they said you don't care about the indigenous people. I said, let me tell you the best I can do to indigenous people. I cannot come from South Sudan and then depend on the government or become drug addict. The best I can do to Aboriginal people to respect them and their land is to be a responsible person. If I can be responsible, then I've respected them enough. You remember what Jordan Peterson said also. I quote this man a lot. He said, if you pick a load from point A to point B and you carry it, no matter how heavy it is, and you go and leave it there, carry it successfully. Even if you feel hard, you will feel tired, you will feel pain, but later on you will feel accomplished. You will have a sense of meaning. You'll feel like you have done something. That's what most young men need. And in our own community, there is nothing among what the South Sudanese community is doing here in Australia that is resembling how we are back home. It's totally different. People at home are actually wondering how come you guys are creating a lot of life, different stories there that are not part of us here. Our culture is a culture of responsibility. In the early 90s when we went to school, primary school under trees, there was no exercise book, there's nothing. You wake up in the morning, you know automatically, you first go into the farm to go and dig. We dig with a small hoe, with no big whatever. Then you finish there, you go and take goats and cows for grazing. Then after you take them, you come back at 9 o'clock. If you are going to school now, you'll now go to school at 9 o'clock. When you finish from school, you come home, you get your food, you eat, and then you go straight away, you know what you're going to do. That's the kind of responsibility we were brought up on. You know what is your responsibility. Now you come here and you tell me that we are like that. I cannot believe it. And then if I find some of my community members trying to defend that, no. I said, I need to be different. I will say who we are, because it's not who we are. So what is the anchor here? What can we use as a community to lock ourselves into Australia as a country? Sport.
What is that?
Sport.
Oh, okay.
Sport. That's what I said, sport. Sport is the only easiest way we can carry the Australian flag in less than a year or two. If you engage in sport, running, basketball, soccer, all this.
Collingwood, as long as...
all these, whatever sport they are in, as long as the community train them at a younger age, by the time they reach 18, 16, they will be able to be they will be able to go into this big club. So the sport is the only anchor that we can use as a community to lock ourselves into the history of this country.
It sounds like a good a good anchor. Yeah. It's
something achievable. Yeah, but this one is easily achievable. You can easily do it from the young age. And then the few talented one, if you get 100 of them and you focus on them, for example, as a foundation, you have 100 teenagers and you really do it as a big job, you will at least get 2. But you're going to have to mentor them, because also sport is a skill. Character will maintain you there. So if you have a skill and you have no character, you will go to the top of the mountain, but because of your poor attitude and character, you will come down quickly. you should be able to balance your fact that you are not happy at the historical injustices that happen in this country, and despite those historical injustices, you're still grateful again for what the country is. It is very difficult for most people to divide those.
Jerry, so what does it mean to be an Australian?
Australia, for me, is freedom, responsibility, and what responsibility means is not responsibility for anybody, responsibility for your own self. If you want to educate yourself, get nice skills, and get somebody to help you, you can get them and get a job. Budget your own income, plan your own thing you want to do. You can do them in Australia. Australia is a country that I cannot believe you can be from the bottom here now, and if you want to work hard by next year this time, you might be able to maybe saying, I bought my house. You can get that job. Have a go. People will give you a chance as long as you just try a little bit. And I always make a joke. I said, if you are a black person and you are working harder, you will be given a chance better than the white person who has been work harder than you. Because people will sympathize with you. You came from far and you are actually trying, and this is how I've been. I get rostered, I get work because they see me. I'm working hard to go to work early every morning. I'm making joke, I'm making other people happy. I get in my work. My attitude makes people keep me working. So that is what Australia means. It's freedom to take my own responsibility. It's not freedom to deny you freedom. It is the freedom to take responsibility on my own side. In some other countries, like back home where I came from, there are smarter people than me, more exposed people than me. But the environment they are in has limited their chances to take responsibility. I am here. I should tell them that. I should make them proud so that they will feel like, yep, that is what I would have done if I was there like Jerry. Not freedom to cause problem, but freedom to take responsibility of yourself. That's what it's like, and that's what Australia is to me.
Well, Jerry, you're certainly not a victim, so...
Not at all.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much.